Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Ricandelphia. Thank you for coming onto my channel and letting me interview you today. I
Yes,
don't
thank you.
I don't normally do interviews. I'm not an interviewer. I don't know if I'm going to do any more interviews in the future. Um, because that's really not what this channel is kind of about. But I figure because of your content and because you are a fellow Puerto Rican on this platform, I figured that it would be good to have you on here. All right. So again, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for coming onto my channel. So, what made you start a channel in the first place?
Well, a lot of things, just as I said before in my other video, just a lot of, things been happening as far as, the Miko situation on YouTube. I've been seeing it, and I didn't like how that was playing out, people going to our country and doing, Latin America and doing crazy shit. And then
Right.
also, the coronavirus, I was just bored, and I was just thinking maybe I should use this time to, as an opportunity to start making videos and making my voice be heard. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Yep. Yep. And I do remember you saying that in your channel, in your videos, but I figured, I would ask that just in case if anybody from my channel they never heard of you, just so you could kind of give them, a little idea about your channel. So, what do you believe your content brings to YouTube that others aren't bringing to this platform?
I bring basically what many Latinos think but are afraid to say. I bring the blunt rawness, and the creativity,
Yeah, you
and
do.
just I bring everything to the table.
Okay.
Because nowadays people have this politically correct, scared mentality, and I'm not scared of nothing. You
That's
know what I
true.
mean?
That's true.
So
That's
I just gotta. I hate YouTube with the blunt rawness. I'm on
that's
YouTube needed for Latinos.
that is true. You are pretty blunt. You are pretty funny. You're a funny dude. Uh, so, what are your thoughts on Puerto Ricans from the island versus those of us born here in the states?
That's a good one. I think well, I'm gonna start with the island. The island, a lot of them well, from when I lived over there, they're kind of like the opposite in some ways in comparison to the ones in the mainland.
Okay.
For example, the ones in the mainland, most of them only know English, many of them.
Yep.
And in the island, it's the opposite. Many of them only know Spanish.
Hmm.
And yeah, like if you go to some parts of Puerto Rico, you'll be hard pressed to find a Puerto Rican that knows English.
Right.
You know what I mean? And on both sides of the coin, there's ghetto people, and then there's uppity people, and then there's normal people that just um they're not too ghetto or nothing, but they're not too stuck up. And you got poor, rich. It's the same all over. But as for in the mainland, hmm, that's a little bit easier to assess because in the island, I was born over there, but I wasn't raised over there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I go over there every 2 years, but I don't interact that much. But in the mainland, I'm interacting more because I'm working and stuff.
Right.
So in the mainland, I would say Puerto Ricans in the mainland should most of them, the ones that don't, should at least try to keep in touch with their culture more. I've seen many that try to blend in with American blacks or American whites,
Right.
and that's not true Puerto Rican culture. That's trying to blend into Americanism. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. I agree.
And yeah, that's definitely one of the main things.
Okay.
And as for New York in particular, it seems to me like most of the New York Puerto Ricans that could have left, like the middle class or the wealthier ones left, and the ones that are still in New York are poor. So when I do go to New York, I see the worst representation of Puerto Ricans. I see the ghettoest ones,
That's true.
and it's like, yeah, I'll be seeing heroin addicts and project people. I'm like, well, I'm just glad that we not all like that. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
as for as for the island, I would say, what can I say about them? They should, focus on, because many of them supposed to stay good, so they should be focusing on bettering Puerto Rico instead of trying to blend in, because they do the same thing over there, try to blend into America, try to
Yeah.
fit in the 51st state. But not all of them like that. A lot of them now, due to the recent events, a lot of them are waking up in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico.
I think that that happens with a lot of people who migrate here, especially after like I would say after the second generation. I think it even starts in the second generation. People just start to become more Americanized. They start to
Yeah,
blend in that becomes their culture technically, right? So, like for
yeah,
example, I'm third generation. So, like even on my channel, like I occasionally touch on things that are going on in Puerto Rico, but I also feel like because I've never been there and like I really am disconnected, so I feel
oh,
like
you should go. It's real beautiful.
of course one of these days, but I haven't gone there yet. So I do feel like I am disconnected from the culture, and I kind of feel like it would be kind of unfair of me to be like, well, people over there should do this and this and that, like, because I'm really, on the outside looking in. But I do give
Yeah, that's
input
true.
on, yeah, I do give input on things here and there, but, I also try to minimize that. And what I try to do is focus on, like, on my channel, on the Latinos that were born here, most specifically the problems that the Puerto Ricans face that were born and raised here, that we have certain sets of issues that not a lot of people know about because we're kind of a forgotten group. So,
Yeah, that's true.
so that's kind of like, what I kind of touch on my channel. But hell yeah, I definitely want to go. Like, of course, there, Mexico, because that's where, my family is from, both of those places. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, do you know Spanish?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I could refer you to some apps
I know
because
there's
it's
a bunch of
2020,
apps.
so
There's a bunch of
it's
apps. You'd be surprised. Like there's some things that I understand, but don't ask me to respond in Spanish. Don't ask me to respond. Like,
no. There's this one app
okay,
that like you would get you to fluency like from 0 to 100 in like a
okay,
year.
okay,
Yeah, it's real good. It's like one of the best apps, language learning apps,
okay.
and it's real
That's
easy to use and
also
navigate.
that's I'm also at the age because one of the things I always say is how I was raised and basically how I was kind of forced to kind of be indoctrinated into not just American society, but to fit in with white American society. And, that's something that I've touched on in like my earlier videos, when I kind of talk about how I was raised and um, kind of the things that my parents went through growing up here in New York and the problems that they faced when they went to school and they only spoke Spanish. At that time, they used to get hit for that. So when I was born, me and my sister, they were kind of traumatized from their experiences. And they were like, okay, we don't want either one of you guys to go through that. You're just speaking English and that's it.
Yeah,
And
I completely understand though.
yeah, so, but
But at the same time,
yeah, I mean, I'm at the age where, I, I got to take responsibility for not knowing the language now. So
yeah,
that's really me, and I know that I have to deal with that. I know. But yeah, a lot of us were raised that way, and a lot of us have similar stories. Especially people that are around my age or people that are a little bit older than me. We have similar experiences with that, and as that being the main reason as to why we don't speak the language. Um, but at this point, it's
Well,
still an excuse. So
yeah. Well, it's 2020. There's a lot of apps that
yeah.
are very easy to use,
Hmm.
and I completely understand your parents.
Yeah.
They immigrated to a country that was real racist at that time. It kind of still is to a certain extent, but it's not like how it was in the past.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would say just don't fold and let the racism get to you and try to mold into what they want you to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, no, it's true. I mean, I think that there's certain things that I've held on to when it comes to culture, but language unfortunately wasn't it. The food was the main thing, like, and that was one thing, like, even when I was growing up, that I told my mom, I'm like you raised me to marry a white man, like I would jokingly tell her that. And I ended up marrying outside of my race anyway. But I told her that because she trained me in a way to speak English, but like to cook Latin food. So I do know how to make the food. I do know the
Yeah,
music to a degree, but like the language was like the one thing she was kind of like, you know. And then my
yeah,
parents' Spanish, their Spanish is okay, but even they feel a little bit uncomfortable now for the way they were raised and how they were coming up. Even they feel a little bit uncomfortable speaking the language, even though they're elderly and they know the language, they know Spanish, but they still don't feel as comfortable speaking it as they do English, which, some people might find that strange, but that's what happens, when you're here for, a few generations. That's what happens,
yeah. I
unfortunately.
understand. But
Um,
food is the key to any man's heart,
yeah.
and as long as as long as he treats you right, that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yes, I mean, he does. Let's see. What's my next question? Okay, so since we're kind of getting into like Puerto Ricans and racial stuff, why do you think it is that we face so much hate online? Because I think like we're one of the groups that get like the most hate online, as far as
Online,
Latin
like on
groups.
YouTube.
Yeah, I would say YouTube, even on other social media things. Anytime you see anything about Puerto Ricans, there's like a lot of hate. And it's not just from other Latin people. I see it from like white Americans. I've seen it from Black Americans. Like, I feel like we get a lot of hate. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, yeah, that's a hard one, but I do see it sometimes. That is a hard one.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it could be I know that people like to make the differentiation, like they try to say, no, the ones from New York are nothing like the ones from the island, and they kind of get like into this, like
Yeah,
they
that's
really
that
hate the ones from New York.
exactly.
So
The
they
ones
come,
that do that, the
yeah,
people that do that the most are mainly Puerto Ricans from the island because the Puerto Ricans in the island they come at the Puerto Ricans from the U.S. mainland because um like they don't speak Spanish and as you said that's the way some of them had to be raised and because it's a racist environment they came in the 50s and 60s
right,
and also because they're quote unquote ghetto.
yeah.
But I don't get that because in Puerto Rico itself has a higher poverty rate than the Puerto Rican American community. You
Yeah,
know,
that's one of the things I always found strange too, that they would kind of, make fun of the, kind of like the ghetto side, or, the poverty aspect of it, but it's like the poverty over there is so bad. So I always found that strange. I mean, the thing with me is that luckily for me in person, I've never went through that. So for me, so far these experiences have only been online. Thank goodness. Because I
yeah,
would never want to experience that level of hate in real life, because anytime I've ever met any Puerto Rican from the island, they've always treated me good, and they've always treated me like just one of them, even though I
yeah,
didn't speak the
exactly.
language, it's like they, especially back in the day, like they understood why I didn't speak it. They would be like, that's not good, that I got to learn, but they were still understanding to the situation. And it could have also been the way I carried myself. I don't know, but thankfully I've never experienced that in real life.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
As far as the little Puerto Rican um Civil War type thing, that's a mainly online thing that I see. But
yeah,
they some of the ones from the island say the American ones are ghettoer, which, like I just said, I never got. Because not only poverty rate is higher, but the crime rate is higher too.
yeah, I
In
know.
comparison to, Puerto Rican neighborhoods in New York, Philadelphia, any other mainland city.
Yeah,
In Puerto Rico itself, the crime rate and the poverty rate is through the roof. Puerto
yeah,
Rico is the most dangerous place under U.S. flag, probably.
yeah. I read recently that Puerto Rico, as of like right now, is like the most dangerous place in the world, like one of the most dangerous places in the world. And I read that like a couple of months ago. So what you're saying sounds like it adds up, which is that's
Yeah,
horrible. I could imagine, with how bad things are from the hurricanes and then all of these earthquakes, and now we have the COVID thing happening, the coronavirus happening. It's like one thing after another, going on over there. It's horrible.
yeah, it's true. Puerto Rico keeps on getting smacked.
Yeah,
As for crime, I would say it's top five because Latin America overall is a very dangerous region. You got Mexico, Brazil, parts of Central America, even other parts of the Caribbean like Jamaica and Trinidad.
yeah,
Those are very dangerous places. Some of them
yeah.
even more dangerous than Puerto Rico.
Wow. Yeah,
But right now, I would say the natural disasters. Yeah, Maria was real bad, but it was real bad. But I would say hurricanes are normal in the Caribbean, and coronavirus. There's a lot of Latin American countries that got more cases,
yeah. I know.
but it got really high crime over there. I would say definitely for a fact.
Yeah. Okay, so since we kind of touched on like, criminal activity, criminality, I know that in your videos, one of the things that you kind of touched on was that you sort of have a criminal background or, somewhat of a background. So considering the life that you've lived, do you believe that you fit the negative stereotypes associated with Puerto Ricans?
To some degree, I fit some of them, because many people think Puerto Ricans are, criminals, gangbangers, and drug dealers,
Right,
and that's a negative stereotypes that
right.
we usually have.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I fit that because of my past.
Okay. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that poverty breeds crime.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if we can't get to the root of that, then what do people expect? And that's why, like, even in my videos, and I don't have a criminal background, my husband does. Okay. That's kind of why every once in a while in my videos I touch on things with regards to like prison populations and Latinos. I have a couple of videos talking about that where I'm reading articles from reputable sources, kind of talking about different statistics when it comes to Latinos and incarceration rates. But one of the things I've always said is, even though I don't have a background, I'm sure that there's going to always be something that I'm going to do at some point myself, or say something, and somebody's going to be like, "You see, that's the typical Puerto Rican bitch." You know what I mean? So, I
Yeah,
think that
because it,
I think if I snap at somebody, I curse somebody out. Yeah, you see, she's a ghetto Puerto Rican, So
yeah,
I think that we're all kind of put in that category at some point. That's the impression that I've always gotten, regardless of how we try to stay away from things or not. At some point, we're going to be labeled in a negative light if we do or say something that isn't popular to everybody else.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
And I also see online that even many other other Latinos and blacks and whites come
mhm,
at Puerto Ricans too.
right.
And I never understood that, but I think it's a different explanation for each group as to why they do it.
Usually, yeah. Yeah, usually there is. So now that you're older and you know you've done certain things, do you have regrets for some of the things that you've done? Were those when you did any criminal activity you've ever gotten yourself involved in? Was it as a means of survival?
Yeah, I would say it was a means of survival because when you're poor, you can't find a job, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah,
As far as regrets, um, I don't know. I wouldn't say I have a regret. I would say I did good things and I did bad things, and everything happens for a reason. And you know, God has a path for everybody.
you're right. I agree. I agree totally. You know, I think that sometimes people do certain things, especially in their youth, like you said before, for different reasons. But especially if there's a poverty aspect in mind, a lot of people do things because they have no choice or they feel like they have no choice. You know, so
Yeah,
that
definitely.
that's definitely an understandable answer to that. So, if you don't
So,
mind
what
me,
do you think?
I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go
what
ahead.
you gonna say?
Go ahead. You could ask me a question.
No, I was gonna say, what do you think are some of the biggest similarities and differences between Puerto Ricans and other major Latino groups here in America?
Okay, so are you speaking in regards to people that, like, let's say that they were all born here? Are you speaking about like American born Latinos just of different backgrounds, or are you speaking of people who are like recent migrants compared to people that have been here for a few generations and stuff like that?
I'm speaking about Americanized Latinos.
Okay. So I think depending on like where we grow up, like regionally, I think that we would probably have more in common. So, for example, I would have more in common with, a third generation Dominican from New York. Why? Because we grew up around the same time, around the same era. We probably experienced the same things growing up in this country. So I think that we would have a whole lot more similarities. Um, and I think that we could probably I would still have certain similarities with somebody. Let's say it's a Mexican from the West Coast. I mean, I'm part Mexican, but I don't know that. Put it this way, I know even less about Mexican culture than I do about Puerto Rican culture. So even though I'm part Mexican, it's like, okay, that person from the West Coast, I may have certain things in common with them depending on what generation they are, how Americanized they are, but I might not, depending on the region. Because from what I hear, the gangs and stuff over there and how they live and everything, it sounds very different than what has happened over here.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. A
they would,
different scenario played out.
yeah, it sounds very different. Like even the race dynamics it sounds like they had way more tensions over there than, like, let's say
Yeah,
Latinos and Black Americans had over here. Not that we didn't have tensions, but over there it sounds like it's really extreme. So in that way,
yeah,
I
it
feel
was a lot
like
worse.
I don't know if I'd be able to relate to that. It's like because I didn't grow up in that environment.
Yeah,
Um,
over here in New York, I would say is sometimes it's attention and sometimes it's not.
yeah.
It's like iffy. But every day people just go about their business
Hmm.
in the East Coast.
It's true. That's true. And like sometimes I might have certain things more in common with white Americans, and sometimes I won't. Sometimes I think I would, but sometimes the white American might look at me like you're not one of us. So, like they don't know how to receive me sometimes, which sounds strange, but that happens a lot. It does happen to me
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
could imagine.
Yeah.
I could
So
imagine.
yeah, because of the way I was raised. Like I think I've said this I've said this in comments. I've said this in videos. On my mom's side, pretty much everybody married somebody white. So everybody, I grew up with around a lot of white people. I know how white people are when people talk. That's why sometimes when people talk about racism when it comes from white folks on this platform, I'm like, don't tell me about it because I know because I grew up. I know it for real.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, like on my dad's side, they didn't necessarily, nobody married anybody white, but they married Latinos from different groups, just different people from Ecuador and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, everybody's mixed and more mixed, really. So, and then I was raised with my dad growing up in, a predominantly Black and Latin neighborhood. So that's how I had the experience with Black and Latin people. So that's why I know the aspects of like all of it, especially from the white and the Black side. Like I know it a lot. Um, but yeah,
You
so
grew up in Brooklyn?
yeah, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm not there anymore, but Bushwick, Bushwick.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a black and Latino neighborhood.
Yep. And the further down you go to one end, it's one way, and then the further up you go, it's another way. Most of it is gentrified now. It looks very different than the way it did when I was coming up. But even
Yeah, I
still,
can
some
imagine.
parts are iffy. So that's how it is. So
Last time I was over there, like 2 years ago, it wasn't that gentrified. It looked a lot different from the '90s, but there's still Latinos over there and stuff.
yeah, it really depends on what part. Like, I had did a video the other day, where I just kind of did like a drive around of my old neighborhood, and there were certain parts of it where there were so many white people. You never would have seen those white people in that area 25 years ago. You never would have seen them. The only time you would see white people in that part was like if they were drug addicts, if they were heroin addicts, or they did crack or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
But now there's a bunch of them over there, and they have little businesses and shops over there, and the neighborhood looks all cute and shit. And I'm like, oh man, it looks so nice over here now. But
Yeah, taking over Brooklyn.
but we also didn't take care of it at the time, right? So we have ourselves to blame too when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's true. Because when you buy the house instead of renting it, that's actual ownership.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So in a way, we kind of allowed that to happen.
Yeah, we did. We did. Things are systematic, but at the same time, we also have to take responsibility too. So while certain things are systematic, at the same time, we have to show sympathy, but at the same time, we also have to, hold ourselves accountable for certain things too. That's just how I look at it. Uh,
Yes,
so as
you're
far as
definitely
like,
right.
I want to ask this, but it's up to you to answer. Like, what did you do as a means for survival? Like, what type of criminal activity did you get into?
Well, basically, I sell drugs and not like little type of drugs. I sell big things.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also, what I got arrested for was like a Call of Duty accessory. You
Okay.
can call it
Okay. Okay.
that.
All right. So let's see. Let's see what else am I gonna ask you. So were you ever homeless?
Well, actually, when I first came to New York, because when I first came to America, I came to New York first, then I came to Philly. When I came to New York, um, like when I first came to live with my grandfather, like the first few months we was having problems, and he'll kick me out like
Mm,
occasionally, and it'll be for weeks at a time. So, and that was when I was like 15, 16 years old.
wow.
So, and back then that was like 2000 and like 2008, no, 2007, I would say around there. And they didn't have all these programs for teenagers that they have now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was kind of messed up back then.
I could imagine. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. So how are things for you now, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, you don't have to like get into details of like what you do for a living or anything like that, but how are you like how are things in your life going for you now?
But it's going good. I moved to Philly because it's a lot cheaper, and just I don't know how to explain it because Philly's a dense city like New York, but it's a different type of dense. Like the houses look a little different. Like for example, we got row houses, so every row house, a whole family has that row house, as compared to New York, one family per floor or mad apartments and per floor. You know what I mean?
Right.
So um, yeah, I moved over here because it's cheaper. I got a whole studio, and since then, since like 15 years old, I got kids and stuff, and I don't live with my kids though. They live with
Oh,
their mom, and I work at security.
okay. Okay. How many kids do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
I got to,
Okay. Okay. That's not that bad. That's not that bad. There's
yeah, I'm
people.
trying to stay out.
Yeah. Just try not to have any more for your own sake. You know, try
Yeah,
not to have any more for your own sake. You don't want to be one of these people with 7 kids by 8 baby mamas. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to stay out, the streets, and just keep on with this job. And even if I lose the job, I'll get another one.
Right.
Be, good example for my kids.
Okay. 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 So let's see. I mean, so far I think that's pretty much the questions that I have. You have
Okay,
any?
so I got a question for you.
Okay.
Um, so what do you think of identity in life in Latin America itself in comparison to that of Latino Americans over here?
So are you asking me how how people perceive themselves in Latin America, basic like compared to how we perceive ourselves over here?
Well, yeah, basically,
Well, I think a lot of the things that not just me, not just you, but even like all these other Latin YouTubers, we always kind of touch on, how everything is race based in this country. So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck in that space as mixed people because we are mixed race. We're kind of stuck in that position where we feel like we have to, we're getting pulled from different sides, right? So it's
yeah,
like you look if you look more of this way, then you have to identify as that. If you look more that way, then you have to identify as that. But then if you look mixed, then what? Right? So
yeah, I definitely agree.
I think that a lot of us have these different types of issues with identity. That's one of the reasons why I oftentimes promote on my channel for us to just identify as Latino. And I think that that's something that we should do here in the States. Now, as far as people in Latin America goes, I believe that they should identify with their nationality. That's just, and that's what they've always done, you know especially if they're like recent migrants. If, like, let's say they're going to come here and live in the States, they should be able to identify with the nationality that they were born. You know what I mean? Whereas with us,
Yeah,
kind of like if we put ourselves, we can say that we're American all day, but are we really viewed as American, regardless of how light or dark we are, right?
yeah, you're right.
So, and then when it comes to basically labeling ourselves black or white all the time, it's like, oftentimes both groups want to, pull us and push us whenever, into the group, in and out of the group whenever it suits them. And that's
Yeah,
something
exactly.
that I've
I
always
completely
said.
agree.
Yeah. So, that's another reason why I always kind of say we should just identify as Latino regardless of what our phenotype says. But that's for people that, like, again, that have been here for a few generations, right? Because I think it's a little bit different for us. But that's just, hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully that answers your
Yeah,
question.
yeah, it does.
Okay.
Um, So do you think Latino is a broad term? Because in a way it may be, but at the same time I feel as though black and white are broad terms as well.
They are.
What do you think?
Yeah. And I think Latino is to a degree too. But at the same time, I'll kind of go back to incarceration, right? Because I did two articles with Latinos and incarceration rates, and basically how we're identified, and how most of us within the prison system, how Latinos are identified as white, regardless of whether we're racially black or white. So if that's the case,
Exactly.
then how are we being taken care of within the prison system, right? How is
Yeah,
funding being allocated to our group? It's not. And we're not receiving the benefits of, let's say we're being labeled as white, we're not receiving the benefits of being labeled as white. And that's kind of what the articles that I presented prove, you know, that we need to have a better system to how we identify, so this way we can, benefit ourselves as a group in different ways, not just with the prison. I just use that because I didn't even know that until I looked up those articles. Um, and that's kind of another reason why I think that we should. I think that it would benefit us as a group financially in this country, because a
yeah, you're right.
lot of
I
us
agree.
aren't doing that great. No, we're not. So,
So what is your idea of Latino unity and how do you plan on achieving it?
oh, as far as the unity goes, like I always say that I guess I'm like, I have this wishful thinking that it could happen. Online, I feel like there's forces that try to um, make it seem like that'll never happen. Maybe it won't. I think us identifying ourselves as one thing might help. I think that that really might help unify us. I know that that might sound strange, but I do think that that would help us. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
You see, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like when I say this to other Latin people, they get it immediately. It's only when we start presenting this to people that are not Latin that they start going,
Cause that's because they see it through race-based lens.
right,
They may see some light-skinned Latinos. Oh no, you just white, or black, or dark-skinned Latinos. Oh, you just black.
right.
But us,
Or they know that us breaking away from their groups might take away less from them,
exactly,
and they don't want that. So that's
exactly.
the other way that I look at it. It's like, look, we've tried it every other way. We've tried labeling ourselves in one box or the other box. We're still being labeled as white. It's not benefiting us. If you want us to do better as a group and you're from another group, why would you be so opposed of us trying something different that may benefit us if you really care about us as a group?
Yeah, I think that white Americans and black Americans should just mind their business and not worried about too much about us and issues and stuff like that.
It's true. It's true. I think that it's really an online thing because honestly, I feel like when it comes to like just white and black people, usually like it's really not a conversation. Like if you tell them like, look, I identify as this, usually they'll be like, if they think you look one way or another, they'll just say it and then they'll go, okay, whatever. But it seems
Yeah,
like
I agree.
online there's like people that are, hell bent on trying to make you, you know, fall into their ideologies basically. So
It's because outside in the real world they just think it, but
yeah,
online they actually say it.
yep, that's you're probably right. You're probably right about that.
So
Probably.
what do you think about Latinos who you know who are overly Afrocentric, like radical, or overly Eurocentric, like Antonio?
uh I always said that and you see that I didn't want to get into other people in this, but that's all right. I always said, and it's not even like to take a shot at them, but I think regardless of what I say at this point with some people on here, they're still going to take my words and manipulate it anyway. So I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. I've said it in videos before that I think that there, to some degree from both sides, there's a level of self-hatred. Because if you're not accepting everything that you are and you're trying to like, fall into one side or the other, then I think that it's like, why are you trying to force yourself into something meanwhile you have, your genetic makeup doesn't match what you're trying to fall in line with? You know what I mean? We're not the same as white or black Americans. We're not.
Yeah, I completely
Why
agree.
can't we just have our own identity? Why can't, like, why do we have to? I think that we can have allies. I'm not one of those people that thinks that we can't have allies with other races of people. I definitely think that we can. I am not one of those people that thinks that it can't happen, because I think that it can. I also think that mixed race people who are not Latino, I think that they should be able to classify themselves as mixed.
Exactly. Completely agree with that.
And that's, one of the reasons why I follow certain channels, is because Latinos, as mixed race people that we are, we go through similar issues that
Struggles.
race people go through.
Yep.
So
In a similar situation.
yeah, I've always resonated with them in my real life too, in my regular everyday life. Like, I have biracial friends, and the things that they would tell me is stuff that I would go through, from white Americans and from black Americans. They treated them very similarly to the way they treated me. And I found that with other Latinos, that they would go through the same thing. So um look, like, and it's strange, because even from both sides, even from the Eurocentric and the Afrocentric sides, I say that there's certain levels of self-hatred, but at the same time, I also see where they're coming from both sides too. I think that both
Yeah.
sides are just an extreme. I think that maybe they need to tone down the extreme, or when it comes to the extremes, I think that the extremes are there for different reasons that we may not know, if that
Yeah,
makes
you
sense.
may be right. It may be like an upbringing
Exactly.
or, something like that.
Exactly. Certain life experiences, certain things that, that they've seen, that they've gone through, has led them to be a certain way.
Yeah, exactly.
I always try to
And
take that into consideration, and that's why I try to be kind. But sometimes my kindness is taken for a weakness, and people want to be stupid. So then that pisses me off. It's like, why are
yeah,
you being like this with me for? Just because you may not agree with me on something. What is the deal? You know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, some of them, I may not, or I may or may not, like them, but there's some things I do like what they say, and some things I don't like what they say. You
right.
know what I mean?
Hmm. Of course,
So
because
it's not,
yeah, because we resonate with certain experiences that they've went through, because we've experienced those things too. That's why.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And sometimes I just wish that the we will put the machismo aside for a little bit. Sometimes I wish that they I wish that they would, but
Yeah, yeah,
not everybody is going to be friends, and that's just the way life is. It's just the way it is. It's just the way
you're
it is.
right.
But yeah, again, I thank you for coming onto my channel. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that I have for you. Um,
Um,
yeah, I think that's it. I can't really think of anything else. Where do you foresee your channel going?
um, I have no, foreseeable, plan for. I'm just,
You're just doing it.
doing it. Yeah, I'm just doing it, video to video.
I think
But
I think you got it. I think you got the personality for it, and I do think that you're gonna do good. I think that there's people on here that are meant to like blow up, and then I think that there's people that are meant to like just stay, you know, a smaller channel. I think I'm one of those channels. I know that I'm not going to be here to blow up. That was never my intention for my channel, you know. And
You never know.
maybe, you know, but I know with my person, like there's certain people that got the personality, and I think you got it. I think you're gonna do good on here. So
Thank you.
I think you're gonna do good, and you're very, very funny. You are very funny.
Yes. I
So I
don't
know
even try
there's
to be
too much
funny.
drama, but
It just come naturally.
I think you can handle the drama. It looks like you can handle the drama with no problem. So
It's actually fun to me.
what was that?
I said the drama's actually fun to me.
Yeah, that's for some people. Yeah, the drama's fun. It could be fun sometimes. Sometimes it could be exhausting though. So it depends. But yeah, I think that's about it from my end. You got any more questions
Yeah.
for me?
Um, Damn, nothing I could think of. Maybe
Okay.
we could do it a second time or something. But right now, we covered everything.
Okay. So again, thank you for coming on to my channel. Thank you for this interview. You are a really cool dude, and just keep doing what you're doing because it sounds like you're on a good path.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right.
And you got a very good channel as well.
Thank you. All right. Well, you have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Uh,